and welcome to the Publish Club. I'm your host, Chris Kendall, founder of the Publish Club and managing editor of Surrendered Press. Thank you for joining us today as we explore books written by authors that are maybe new to you but could very well become your next favorite. If you're a new or aspiring author and would like to become a member of the Publish Club, please visit thepublishclub.com for author services that can remove some of the non essential writing details off your plate so that you can focus on writing your book and getting it finished and into the hands of the readers around the world that are waiting for it. And if you're a reader, I hope you'll check out some of these next books that we talk about. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. Today, my guest is Meg Fitzpatrick. Meg, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Meg Fitzpatrick. I did have a previous pen name, Meg Fitz, and now I'm switching over to Meg Fitzpatrick. I've been writing kind of independent for about 2.5 years now. I have 5 books out, four under the Meg Fitz pen name and one under the Meg Fitzpatrick pen name. But I'm long term sticking with Meg Fitzpatrick.
Okay, so why the change?
So Meg Fitz was actually a it's a pen name for young adult and new adult books that I've written. Earlier in my career, I wasn't super comfortable writing spice, and I was very much drawn to like that teen storytelling. And so I didn't want Meg Fitz readers to jump over to Meg Fitzpatrick when there's like a higher spice level. Like I really wanted to make sure that there was a good difference between that. So Meg Fitz is young adult, new adult. Meg Fitzpatrick is adult. And if I ever decide to write straight up erotica, the name is going to be It Fits.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
fun.
But I figured I would stick it all sort of makes sense in my mind where the names get shorter depending on like the age. And Meg Fitz seems like a fun young name, and Meg Fitzpatrick seems very like fancy. I don't know. So yeah.
Sophisticated.
Very
Okay, all right,
sophisticated.
awesome. Okay, so the most recent book is under Meg Fitzpatrick. Tell us about that
Mhm.
one.
So that would be Shield and Savior. It's out on my website now for ebook, and the audiobook. It'll be going out to all the retailers on March 28th, but only digital copies. Um, and it is the beginning of a series called The Four Families, and it is a Mafia rom-com series where, yeah. Um, the idea is these four crime families from various different criminal organizations have been brought together by one huge secret that they were conned by their moms for 40 years. And now if it gets out, they'll totally lose credibility. So it just kind of like brings these four families closer and closer and closer. Um, the the main story is about like the third generation of the families. So, yeah, the first book is the Italian mob, the second book is the Irish mob, the third book is the Russian mob, the fourth book goes back to the Italian mob. There is going to be a 4.5 that fills in some of the Mexican cartel. And then the fifth book is about the security company that has been hired to protect all of them.
Wow. Okay,
Mhm.
that's a lot. That sounds like a lot of research having to. I mean, it's hard enough to learn about one
Mhm.
um, mob, I guess,
Mhm.
family, but to have to learn about four, did you put a lot of research into that?
No. So, in my head, I'm always like, yeah, I'm gonna go back and research, and then I just kind of write the stories. And for the first book, there's like mob stuff, but it's not like overwhelming. And really, the whole concept is like none of the main characters really want to be in the mob. Like they're not at all interested. The all the men would much rather be playing video games than running like a criminal enterprise or whatever, like they're just not really into it. And that's also kind of what the series is about how like you have the family expectations versus like what you actually want to do, and is what the family is expecting you to do really the right thing for you to do. So like that's really what's being examined over the course of these books.
Interesting. Okay, so usually I do read a lot of the mafia kind of stuff, and usually the guys are like dark and
Mhm.
kind of pissy and
Mhm.
broody and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So it sounds like your guys are not. They're
Not
man
so much.
children.
Yeah, not so much. So the first two books are about the daughters. So the first book is about Izzy. She is a when she was 16, she got pregnant and she decided to run away before the family could do anything to her. And then 10 years later, she comes back because her ex is now like trying to get back into the picture, and he's just like not a good guy. And you know you're a real douche when like the mob thinks you're a douche. Like, so they decide she comes back home, and she's actually or her family hires a bodyguard to protect her. And so this first book is about her and the bodyguard and the company that he works for, which is Macedon Securities. And it's like, the bodyguard who's like very professional, doesn't think he needs anyone, doesn't want to be a dad, falls in for the single mom who has this fantastic kid, and now the bodyguard's torn between like his feelings for her and his loyalties to the company, and the company is run by his best friend and roommate. So like now he's all like torn between those two things.
Like a different twist on some of the stuff that we might be familiar with. So that's
Yeah.
interesting.
It's very so if you're expecting dark, you're really not gonna get that. You're gonna get like it's a very funny book. I openly laugh multiple times. Um, like pretty much in every chapter, there's like something in it that makes me giggle.
Yeah.
And it makes me laugh, so everyone else must think it's
Yeah.
hilarious. Um, but the first book, yeah, like that's the whole idea, is that the mafia stuff is happening in the background, but that's not what the books are focused on. And the series was originally called Macedon Securities, and it was really going to be about the security company and how the security company is like protecting this family, right? And then I realized all of the main characters of the books are actually a part of the four families. So I completely named the entire series wrong, uploaded it everywhere with the wrong title, completely shifted like marketing because everything was like all elephant based. And now I'm like, oh, no, this makes way more sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah,
Okay. Well, we all do that at some point. So
yeah,
that's it's, at least you got it out of the way early in the series.
yeah,
So that's
yeah.
not bad.
I'm very grateful that like I discovered it before the release of book 1, before the books went out to print, like all that kind of stuff. I was able to fix a lot of the like, oops, like this actually makes more and more sense. So yeah.
Oh, good. Okay. And then so when will we be able to get book two?
So book 2 is actually available on pre-order. Book 2 should be coming out in November. I like to do a two book a year release schedule, March and like October, November. Um, so writing is not my full-time job, and in order to maintain my own sanity for me, my family, 2 books a year is really reasonable, and it's something that I can do fairly well. Um, and without like burning me out. I think that's a really important thing. I have incredible respect for people who can rapid release, but that's just not who I am. I mean, mad respect. That's amazing because it takes me forever to like write and edit and all that kind of stuff. So I can't imagine doing it every single month. Amazing. They're probably making way more money than I am. So there's a trade off there. There's a trade off. But yeah, the idea is that this book series will have like spring and fall release schedule. Um, and then it will have a summer and winter Kickstarter schedule. So, the first book was released on Kickstarter in order to help pay for an audiobook. And then book two's Kickstarter will start in July. So, and then it'll come out in November. And book three's Kickstarter will start in like January and come out in like March, April-ish in that general time. So, yep.
Awesome. Okay. No, that's a smart way to do it. And it's really, I think it's really good that you know what works for you and that you are sticking with that and not feeling the pressure to like try to pump them out faster or try to like, do something that just isn't good for you. So
Yeah.
I think that's really smart.
Thank you. Thank you. I think.
Okay. What about the first series, your young adult, new adult stuff?
So my very first book is called Accidental Quarantine, and it's 99 cents for like a while now. And it's only available on Amazon because I did the free ISBNs, and so I'm like, well, Amazon now owns this until I take it down. Um, it's a Hades and Persephone retelling where um Hadian accidentally kidnaps Penny and exposes her to a deadly virus, and then has to go into an underground facility while scientists race for 6 months to find a cure. And kind of sounds a little familiar, but here's the catch. I wrote this 10 years before COVID. I wrote this in 2010, and I shopped it around, did the trad publish thing, and got close to like getting a publisher and an agent, but then ultimately they passed, and they passed because quarantine is not realistic, and nobody wants to read a book where the main male character has depression. So who knew
Yes.
2010 was the pinnacle of mental health? I did not know that. But during COVID, I was standing in my living room and I was like, God, I feel like I've done this before. Like I've like not just in regular COVID time, but like I feel like I've done this. I'm like, oh, right. I wrote that book about it like 10 years ago. I was like, yeah, nobody wanted it because nobody cared about Hades and Persephone. Okay, and then I sat down and was reading Lore of Olympus and Neon Gods and Touch of Darkness, and I was like, yeah. So I decided to take that book, put it up on Vella, and try to build an audience that way. And then use that as like my training ground, like figuring out how to make a website, how to do ads, how to do all that with the book that I was not emotionally attached to. Because the books I was attached to was Best Laid Plans and Failure to Plan, which is my new adult book series. And it was like a duology, and then it turned into a trilogy, and then it stopped. So yeah.
Now, okay. So that's funny that you wrote a pandemic book so far, in the past. But did people like it? Did they appreciate it, once they got into the point where like, okay, I guess pandemics could exist and we could go into quarantine at some point?
So once it was released, it came out to pretty like decent reviews. People really liked it. They liked the homage to the Greek myths. Like it's in there, but it's not overwhelming, so they would like to find it. Here's the thing. I nailed quarantine like ridiculously well because the characters spend most of their time just watching TV and working out. Like, I hit pretty much all of it except for the starter bread, the sourdough
In the
bread,
toilet
and
paper?
ironing. Like, other than that, though, I nailed it. They spent the whole time playing with their dogs. It's like very, very, yeah.
Wow. That God, I can't even imagining a quarantine pre-COVID. Like it
Mhm.
was so far off my radar. Like,
Mhm.
I mean, basically, my only reference would have been like I Am Legend, the movie,
Yeah,
like basically where every single person dies and I'm the
yeah,
last person left on the planet, kind of a situation.
yeah.
So, so that's impressive that you were able to like come up with something that was at all remotely near
Mhm.
reality. So good job.
Thank you.
I
Keep
have to check it out.
in
Okay.
mind, I did not intend for it to be real.
A premonition.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. Good. Well, those all sound really exciting. And when people buy your books, where's the best place for them to find them all?
So my personal website, megfitzpatrickshop.com, that's really kind of the best place, especially if you want to get Shield and Savior. Um, Shield and Savior on my website has 2 chapters of bonus features, and if you bonus chapters, and if you sign up for my newsletter, then you get 2 more bonus chapters. If you buy the books on Kickstarter, you get all 4 bonus chapters added into the paperback and hardcover. The hardcovers are only available through Kickstarter. The paperbacks are going to be available um, on my TikTok shop once I get that all organized and at live events. So,
Awesome.
but all digital stuff is definitely best through my website, including you can get the audiobook. That's a duet narration. Oh, it's so good.
Nice.
By Paige Reisenfeld and Christian Leatherman. The two of them go back and forth. It's absolutely amazing. It's so funny. Um, it's so funny. There's a scene with cake where the main character goes to a wedding and there's no cake and stuff happens. Stuff goes down. So it's the only part of any book that I've written that is very much what happened to me,
Yeah,
except all the other fun stuff that happens afterwards.
okay. I was gonna say if I went to a wedding with no cake, I think there would be a scene. There would be
Oh yeah.
words.
Yeah, yeah. I yeah, I think the scene is just like perfect because the whole time she's uncomfortable, her feet hurt, she doesn't want to be at this wedding. The only thing that's holding her together is the idea of cake. And then she finds out that there's no cake and just unleashes fury. So, yeah.
Oh, funny. Okay, good. Well, that's very yeah, that sounds really good. Okay, well, thank you so much, Meg. It's been so fun to have you here today. Do you have any parting words for us before we say goodbye?
Um, no, not really. Just I'm a really funny author. I'm hilarious, I assure you. I don't think I did a great job selling it, but I'm very funny. So
We
come
can
check
tell.
out
We
my
can
books.
tell.
I'm a fantastic distraction from reality. And if you're in a reading slump, my books are really good for that too, because they're fast. They're like one sitting kind of books, like even though they're 300 pages, they move very, very fast. So it's a really nice reset. It's a good palate cleanser. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, good. Okay. Well, thank you so much. It was really fun having you here today, Meg. So we appreciate your time, and we're definitely going to have to check out um, all of those books. Actually, sound really interesting. Um, for the rest of you listeners and viewers, thank you also for joining us today. I hope that you'll come back next time when we learn about other books that might end up at the top of your to be read list. So until then, keep reading.